Thanks for joining us and welcome to the latest episode of Catching Up with Coach. And we're joined by another of our two sport coaches. She coaches men's and women's water polo here at McKendree. That's Colleen Lischwe. Coach, thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Coach, lots of good things I think we'll cover in this segment. First of all, you basically have built these programs from scratch, but talk about your time before you came to McKendree, what you did and how you kind of got to this point.
Sure. So I'm actually from the St. Louis area, which is a little bit rare for a lot of water polo coaches to be, from the Midwest. Lucky enough to have Zach from the Midwest as well. And I think it gives us a little bit of a leg up when we are communicating with athletes that might come out to McKendree to play that aren't from California, where kind of the big hub of polo is. We have a little bit more experience to share. But being from St. Louis, there's no women's water polo at the high school level. So I actually grew up playing with guys. The very first water polo practice I went to, I was the only girl, and it stayed that way for a very long time. I was lucky enough to be a part of the USA Water Polo national team pipeline. And then moving on into college, I played at Marist, which is a small Division I school up in Poughkeepsie, New York. I was lucky enough to have a couple opportunities to play in national championship tournaments, learned a lot. I think that I coach very similarly to the coach that, that was by my side in college. And when I moved back to St. Louis, I started coaching high school at the high school that I went to, which was kind of a cool full circle thing. And was also coaching with USA Water Polo as a part of the Olympic Development Program. And I've been coaching club in the area for about 10 years now with St. Louis area polo. So I kind of, in all honesty, was starting to look towards graduate school and getting into coaching, at a higher level. It was starting to take up more of my time as a hobby. So why not move towards the direction of, doing it full time. And I was lucky enough that the university announced the start of the program. And I'm just across the river. So I have been with the program since year one in various capacities. I think I've had every single job title, but I'm happy to be here. And it's all, kind of, brought me different opportunities to build. And I think it's been a nice way for us to lay a foundation for the team.
Now, you talked about playing on the East Coast where the sport is starting to catch on a little more. But obviously, those who know water polo know that California is the hotbed of recruiting.
Yeah,
you're fighting for student athletes to come from that area, and you've been very successful in bringing student athletes from that area. Talk about the recruiting process and how you sell McKendree on these student athletes.
Yeah, so I think one of the, the biggest draws for the athletes that we have on the team already is just the fact that they are going to get such a solid opportunity both in the water and in the classroom. Those 14-to-1 student-teacher ratios, small class sizes are really, really big for us. Having the opportunity for professors to know your name and come to your games, and then allow that to kind of translate into creating relationships and networking moving forward. I think that that's been huge for us in terms of recruiting. But there's also the aspect of, when you're playing out in California, you're in California, and that might be the hub of the sport, but you don't have the opportunity to do nearly as much traveling. We don't have any collegiate teams nearby us so much. So we have the opportunity to go out to California every year, but we also go play on the East Coast.
Right.
We pull from athletes all over the country, all over the world. So we've brought together a lot of play styles, and then having the opportunity to go East Coast and West Coast and bring teams to us in the Midwest, I think has allowed us to create a system of play that works best for us by pulling different experiences, both as we play in game together, but also in terms of what they can bring to the team from year one moving forward.
And I'm sure with you, like I said, coming in almost on the ground floor of this program, you saw the opening in the McHenry Metro Regplex, and that has had to help recruiting.
Yes, it is very nice to have an all deep pool. I think there's 6 cages that we have, tons of space to have a very high level training. Lots of athletes come to us not having played indoors before, which we can certainly work through. It's even easier to do that when we don't have to worry about playing in a 3-foot pool, having this giant space that, we have, we're the first team that's been in there and competed in there, and getting to kind of use it to our best advantage has given us a lot of experience quickly.
Now, talk a little bit about your programs. You've enjoyed success on both sides, especially on the men's side. You've won a conference championship. You guys have played extremely well, been competitive wherever you've been. The women's team, building year by year, they've been pretty solid as well. And talk about building those 2 programs from scratch.
Yeah, so I think that we've been lucky that we had the first class ever that we did. The more I think back to it, the sole freshman that we had, the sole senior that we had graduating on our women's team last year, and I think there was 11 guys that graduated last year. Wow. Without them, this program would not be nearly as successful as it is now. Having the opportunity to go through some really, hard, difficult times and build the program with these athletes. And again, my having the opportunity to get to know each athlete in different roles as a GA, as an assistant coach, as a head coach, I think gave us the opportunity to build a strong player-coach bond quickly, both individually and as a team. And it facilitated an open door policy that I have where, if you have an idea, if you think a drill is not working or a play is not working, I want the athletes to come to me and share that. At the end of the day, they're in the water. They're the ones that are playing. I can draw something out that might look perfect, and we might have to make some tweaks once they try it. So just the fact that I've had, those amazing athletes like right next to me laying a foundation, I feel was huge for us to grow quickly, especially again, having to change my job title so many times. Sure. And bringing in some other coaches along the way. But I think that now that we're in year 5 of both programs, those guys and gals that graduated this past year have left us with an amazing foundation. And, both teams are here to work. They know what the challenges ahead of them are. They're happy to have inter-team competition at practices. And we are at the point where they all realize that the things that we are doing in the water, out of the water, in the weight room, wherever, are being done so that we can have as much success as possible. And I mean, the guys know we want to be in the championship game of our conference every year. The girls know the goal is to take steps forward in our conference year to year positively. And I think that those seniors that graduated last year provided so much for us. And, this year, in my opinion, whether we have a regular season or not, will give us a lot of idea to see, what's stuck and how we continue to grow.
Now, you talked about dealing with difficulty, and obviously last spring you dealt with some of that difficulty. Your fall season, which was the men's season, you got through without a hitch. You're right in the middle of your women's spring season. Actually, you're on a road trip in California when everything came to a halt because of COVID. Talk about dealing with that unique circumstance, having to get your student athletes back to campus so they can get home themselves.
It was wild. All of this happened, during spring break. And for the most part, a lot of our men were on spring break together. So they at least had each other to kind of, work through some of the uncertainties, get back to campus, get their stuff and head home. Bummer that I didn't get to, see any of them off, but at least they had each other. I think that that's something that has really helped them. And with the women, I think, the same thing goes for them. We were out in California. We were in Northern California. I remember prepping for our first game of the weekend and getting an ESPN notification on my phone that NBA had pushed the pause button. And at that point, it was very much like, all right, it's day by day. We don't know what's going to happen next. And that next morning, games were canceled. We needed to start finding a way to get ourselves back home. And the girls were so patient. They were understanding. Obviously, it was upsetting. We had a team meeting out by the pool at the hotel, kind of talked through it together. We knew there was a lot of uncertainties, and, the way that they kind of banded together and sucked it up for those last 2 days that we were kind of stuck in the hotel waiting to go home without polo, learning that season is, most likely ending, and we're going home once we get back to campus. It really, throws a wrench in things. I think we were prepared for the back half of our season more than we ever have been. Had a really tough front end for that reason. So it was a huge bummer that we didn't get to finish it out, but the maturity that they showed in dealing with it was, amazing for me to see, and calming for all of us, I think.
Now you talked about having that team meeting at the pool before you started back home. Obviously, you've been dealing with your teams remotely during the summer. How have they handled quarantine, dealing with COVID, and all the other associated things that come with it?
Yeah, it's been certainly different for everyone. Again, we're from I think we're close to about 10 states, and, we have members on the teams from other countries as well. And so everything was different for everyone. Some people came back having had the opportunity to train over the summer and others didn't. But I think that some changes that we made over the summer as a result of COVID actually are going to stick in the long run. We've started doing a lot more virtual meetings. I've started recruiting virtually over Zoom a lot more and getting to know the athletes a bit. And so I think overall they handled it, as best as they possibly could. Both the men and the women are a pretty social bunch. They're very active on campus. We would love to be at games in the stands, cheering, being loud, and having our own games too. But I think that, at the end of the day, everybody knows that we get through this, and we have a season. If we don't, if we aren't doing the right thing, then we're risking that. And everybody wants to play enough that I think that we'll get there.
Now you're at the point where you're back on campus. The semester has started. Return to play is underway. You're able to practice. Talk about how things are going with that.
Yeah, it's certainly been interesting. Zach and I are being as creative as possible as we are putting practices together. We started a little bit slow just to make sure everybody's getting back in shape. But as we get back into the swing of things, I have been really happy with where we are at as a group. And I'm looking forward to start playing a little bit more, again, creatively without that contact, but giving the team some opportunities to train hard, use this time to prep for a season that now they don't have to worry about until January, whereas normally the guys are in 2 weeks and game one.
Right.
So we have a lot of time to work on some of the stuff that maybe gets neglected or that we don't get to spend as much time on. So I fully expect both teams will, by the end of this semester, be in great shape, mentally and physically, so that we can compete successfully in the spring. But it's been interesting.
Now, Coach, in addition to obviously being a coach for your men's and women's teams, you become a leading voice among our coaching staff in a lot of different areas. Um, you've helped create, you were in on the ground floor creating the Anti-Racism and Allyship group, and
Yeah.
also another one that I'd like to talk about that you're involved in on campus is that it will be debuting next month, the Women's Mentorship Program. Can you please enlighten us on both of those, what those mean to our student athletes, and also the other groups, what they mean to our coaches and the leadership on campus?
Absolutely. So, starting with our allyship group, obviously, this summer came with a lot more than a pandemic.
Yes.
And it has always been very important to me that my athletes, my family, the people in my life and my community have a safe, open outlet to learn, to fail forward, and to help educate each other. And I really felt that, as activism was more apparent outside of our university, taking the opportunity to, when we came back to classes, kind of bring it back into us. I wanted to be learning more. I wanted to have conversations with other coaches. And I wanted to be prepared to have conversations with my athletes as well. So we put together a small group where we are, reading articles, watching videos. We just finished up a podcast together, and we're meeting bi-weekly as a athletics group just to, talk through some of our experiences, how culture and race directly affects how we do everything. It's been very eye-opening for us, and I think it's given us a lot of opportunity to, nitpick some of those things that we personally need to be better at, but also those things that we can bring back to our team and, share with the rest of campus and ideally create some kind of change,
Sure.
whether it's at the base level for just us as individuals or our team or our community. I mean, realistically, we on campus as coaches are role models, and it's very easy to say that we're engaged and that we are doing the work and that we are supportive. But we have to do it. It's never done. And we have to actively be anti-racist. It's not enough just to say that I'm not racist. So having the opportunity to amplify our experiences, our voices, and learn a little bit more has been fantastic. I'm really enjoying it. I hope the other coaches are as well. And then we have our women's mentorship program. This is something that's going to start next month, in October. I really wanted to find some ways for our athletes to be involved in the community, whether it's our sports community, the McKendree community, whatever. And it's a little bit difficult to do that when we can't have big events or see each other. So I started thinking a little bit about, the athletes that I'm talking to through recruiting, and a lot of them are missing out on the opportunity to experience a normal college search, experience, playing over the summer, having college coaches watch you. And we're just kind of stuck right now with not much to do. So we are putting together a program where we're working with young female athletes. We selected a club in St. Louis. It is the first and only all girls water polo club in the area. So we are going to match our athletes up with theirs and have kind of a mentor-mentee program where they can, work together to talk through, whatever it is that they need to talk through. But we'll also put together some team events and ideally work towards some community service and some events together so that we have the opportunity to, engage with our community and boost the sport as best as possible.
Coach, those are great initiatives that you've undertaken. Looking forward to see how they're implemented even further on campus. Do you think your involvement in those groups has strengthened your leadership skills as a whole?
Absolutely. I think that, I'm not much of a no person when it comes to being presented with an opportunity. It's, honestly a fault of mine if it comes to me. Yep, I'm doing it. But both of these things I think are necessary for the athletes to prep for their future. And the better I can, A, set an example, but B, bring forward opportunities to the team, the better leaders they're going to become, the more I can kind of take a small step back and lead in different ways. I think it's definitely changed my voice. I think it's definitely changed the way that I write practices, the way I look to the future. And I hope that that continues. We're not going to do everything right on the first time. And, the more involved I have been, the more I've been able to pinpoint things that I want to change. And hopefully, the same happens for those around me.
Well, Coach, between your committee involvement, coaching two teams, do you have any time for hobbies?
No. This is my hobby also. I love water polo. I love talking about water polo. I coach in my free time. So it's pretty much all water polo all the time for me. But my husband and I bought a house last year. So we've been spending a lot of time decorating and redoing some of that, and spent a lot of time gardening over COVID quarantine season. And
Sure.
Working from home has given me more time to explore other hobbies, but I like it being all water polo all the time.
Understandable. Do you have any game day rituals, any kind of superstitions that you follow?
Well, as an athlete, I'm probably one of the most superstitious people you will ever meet. Not so much as a coach, but we do have a pretty standard game day regiment that happens every game. I am not one of those people that listens to music to pump myself up. I prefer silence and to be in my own head. So I usually spend some time kind of off on my own planning while the team warms up together. And we'll always come together before we hop in the pool, and then again after we hop in the pool to go over everything together. Something that's really important to me is that I let the team know I trust them, I love them, we will go through this, and no matter what, we're going to come out on the other side, whether it's a championship game or a game that we know we have in the bag already. And just reminding them to have fun, and reminding myself to have fun. You always play better. I think I coach better when I'm having fun. So much more simple ritual as a coach than as a player, where I'm wearing the same shoes like constantly. They don't have a back to them anymore. I have very regimented ritual as a player, but as a coach, I try and keep it cool a little bit more.
Gotcha. Obviously, seasons are in pause mode right now, but what's your hope? What's your goals as we head into the later part of the 2021 academic year?
Main goal is to compete, honestly. I hope that the teams stay healthy enough, they're making the right decisions for all of this work that we do in the first semester to translate into a good, successful year of competition. On the men's side, I think that we are very well poised to find ourselves in a championship game again. I think on the women's side, we have more time to prep after winter break than we normally would. We're looking at starting, later in February, early March, especially having to coach the men and the women in the same season. That'll be fun for Zach and I. But I think that we will enter a season of competition ready to go, so long as we stay healthy. And, main goal is competition, and finishing the year off as best as possible, regardless of what it looks like, knowing that competition will again happen.
Yeah. Last question. How are you going to coach both teams at the same time? Are you going to clone yourself, or?
I don't know. Zach and I talk about it relatively frequently. We have the men's club team as well. So
Right.
We're looking at one semester, 2 coaches, 3 teams. we're going to have to probably work some magic, but we'll make it happen. We have ideas. As long as the team is positive and they work with us, we'll figure it out. They're the priority. So we'll, if we have to clone ourselves, we will.
Creative scheduling, correct?
Yes, very.
Well, Coach Colleen Lischwe, it's been a pleasure joining you, spending this time with you. I've certainly been enlightened on our water polo programs. Best of luck to you as you approach your seasons. Hopefully they come off without a hitch this year, and best of luck to you moving forward.
Thank you.
That's been Colleen Lischwe from our men's and women's water polo teams. I'm Scott Cummings. Thanks for joining us on Catching Up with Coach. And as always, it's a great day to be a Bearcat.